Hi guys, I hope you're having a great start to your day so far. It is a beautiful fall day here in Michigan. It's about 65 and sunny and the leaves are changing and it's just beautiful around here. So I hope you're having beautiful weather where you're at and you're having a great start to your day that's filled with joy and peace. Today I want to talk about something that really I feel like God was speaking to my own heart lately, and He's kind of taken me back through this, and it's the topic of obedience. And I think that a lot of times when we hear the word obedience, we think that it's not a word that we like to really kind of associate with. We like to think, that we maybe need to obey here or there or maybe in the past, but we don't really think that it's an ongoing thing that God calls us to places of obedience in our lives in order to bring us to either the next level or a place of safety or a place of blessing. Whatever it is that He's calling us to often requires that next step of obedience. And so I know in my own life, years ago, one of the greatest steps of obedience I ever took was quitting my nursing job and starting Dash and Dish full-time as a business and a ministry. And at the time, it made no sense to my logical brain because I just finished 5 years of nursing school. I worked so hard to get through it. And I just started my first nursing job, and then God was leading me to start Dash and Dish full-time. And so I was like, what are you doing, God? But I just knew that I knew in my heart, and there were countless confirmations, and I got wise counsel, and, it wasn't just like a random spark decision. But after all of the confirmations, I knew that I had my own choice to make, which was to be obedient to what God was calling me to do. And, I know that I would have, if I stayed in nursing, probably been very happy, and I would have been blessed where I was at. But I know that the people that I needed to reach, that, God had a special gift inside of me to reach those people, which hopefully are all of you who are hopefully blessed by Dash and Dish. They maybe wouldn't be reached if I wasn't obedient. And so oftentimes I think it's important when it comes to obedience to first of all realize that it doesn't just affect ourselves, it can affect so many other people if we do or we don't do what God is calling us to do. So the scripture that God gave me, and I'll never forget, I was sitting in a carport at my apartment, and I was newly married, and I was like, God, am I making the right decision? It was in Job. And I'm going to read it real quick. It's Job 36:16. It says, yes, He lured you away from the jaws of trouble and into an open area where you were not restrained, and your table was covered with rich foods. So I love that scripture because it spoke so directly to my heart. And I actually was praying and sitting in my car, opened my Bible, and my eyes fell on this. And it was like God spoke it. It was a revelation word to me directly at that time in my life. And I love it because it says, He lured you away from the jaws of trouble. Now, it's not that the, nursing job was a job of trouble, or, it was a horrible thing. But at the same time, if we aren't in God's will, if we're not being obedient and doing what He called us to do, we may be in a place that we're not supposed to be, which could be, outside of His protection. And then it says, to an open area where you are not restrained. And now I look back all those years ago and I think, God, You've done so many amazing things through Dash and Dish, and You've touched so many people in a way that I could never have even imagined. And so I just think how amazing to be in this spacious place where God is just working so mightily, and it's all because, I decided to trust Him and take that step of obedience. And now again in my life, like I said, it's not oftentimes just a one step of obedience, but I feel like God is calling me to, do some things now in my life that are quite, maybe don't make sense to my brain and my logical head, and I think, what are You calling me to do this for, Lord? But God ultimately knows, the bigger picture, and He knows the greater scheme of things and why He's calling us to do certain things. Now, I'm not saying that it relates in any way to Dash and Dish. This is something actually in my personal life aside from Dash and Dish. But I know that God is calling me to do things, and at times it seems scary, it seems hard, it seems like my flesh doesn't always want to do it. And yet I know from experience that God's place of obedience that He's calling us to is always for not only our safety, our blessing, but to also bless and further His kingdom. So I would encourage you today that if God is calling you to anything that, maybe tough to understand, maybe it's hard to do, maybe it's something you don't really feel like doing, to just take that step of obedience. And if nothing else, just pray and ask the Lord to give you that heart of obedience, that heart to obey Him, and just give you that singleness of heart where it's like you're not looking around, you're not looking and wondering why He's asking you to do something, but just to give you that that heart where it's just singly focused on Him and His voice to you, because it will ultimately lead you to a spacious place, a place free from restriction, a place of safety, a place of blessing, and a place that He can really work. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you again soon.